Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Joy Evans.
Today we're taking a look at landmarks.
Yes.
There are a lot of party games that come out over the course of a year, but very few of them make a big splash. Landmarks from Floodgate Games has been getting a lot of buzz, so it is one that we wanted to take a look at. It is a game, it says here, mark the land, follow the clues, link the words to find your way. It is a game where you are placing words out for other people to figure out where to go on a treasure map. That doesn't make a ton of sense, so I'll show you. The game comes with a cloth map. It has a nicer view of the island on the other side, but I'm going to show you this side just because it's a little easier to deal with. You're going to pick a level of how difficult you want the game to be, and you're going to take a card from a map that matches that level. One person is going to be the guide, and they're going to take this card. This card's going to show the map here, and so it shows north this way, so let's move it so north is facing this way. And it's going to show you various things on the map. It's going to show you some starting words. Here they are: stone, big, and rib. And those words are going to go on the map in that section, like this. I am now trying to get people to get to the exit. The exit's right there. But before we get to the exit, you also want to get treasure. Now, the rules are a little ambiguous on this, how much treasure you need to get. They're like, you can win without getting treasure or getting one treasure, but is that really a win? I don't know. So it's kind of up to your group to decide. So what the person's going to do, who is the guide, is they have this board here, and they have 7 tiles on it, which is your water limit. And each turn of the game, they're going to write a word here. And so I'm going to write something that's going to match these words on the board. So maybe I might write here, we have big and we have rib, and I might write barbecue. So I'm just going to write BBQ here. So that's short for barbecue. And then I give that to everyone. I'm not allowed to talk, and they're going to decide where that needs to go. And so they might put it here between big and rib, because they'll say barbecues have to do with ribs, and barbecues are big. Or maybe they think it's just rib. Then it might go here or here. Does that have to do with rib and stones? Are barbecues cooked on stones? They might go over here, but it definitely has something to do with ribs. And everyone is discussing this. They will finally place it somewhere, and then you tell them what they found. If they found nothing, no big deal. So the other things that they can find are printed here. If you find a treasure, mark it off. Yay, you got treasure. If you find water, fantastic. You will refill to your water limit, which starts the game at 7. If the person ever runs out of tiles, you all die. If you find a trap, you lose a tile from here, and your water limit goes down by 1. If you find a curse, you cannot win. If you find an amulet, it will cancel 1 curse, which means if you find 2 curses, you lose. And if you find the exit, you get off the board. There's also a competitive version that you can play where you can flip it over and 2 different things will be on the sides. And like I said, there's going to be even more things. This is for a competitive board where each team is going for various things on the board. And then, of course, here's a harder map, which you can see has more curses and more traps. So that's how you play. I'm going to come in as by saying this is one of the most times I've played a game before doing a review. I don't normally play a game like 10 times or so, but I played this one a lot.
Yeah.
Because I just kept messing with it. I was just curious about, there's a lot of things about this that I'm curious about. The basic concept, when I first heard about it, I said, that's interesting. It sounded very much like another game that R&R Games made a while ago, Mystic Paths.
But instead of, in that one, all the words are already laid out, and you need to send people 2 different words. This one's kind of the opposite. You're making the map by making the words slowly.
That's correct. But it still has that same concept where you're trying to give something, you give a clue, and people around you are discussing that clue, and you just shut up. There's several games that do that now. I mean, the most popular is So Clover, where a game in which people are putting some cards out there and they're discussing why you would do something, and you have to sit there and just not make faces. Even Codenames has a bit of that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and Link City.
Link City is another one that came out this year. And so there's a lot of people who like that concept. It's fun. We're all going to be amateur psychologists and get into your brain as to why you did it.
Yeah, and this one does it with this positional type of a thing. So rather than just, just a straight up word association, you have to kind of decide, okay, well, do they want these multiple words touching the new word that they're putting out there? And that is, I would say, like a slightly novel twist on it. So I appreciate that this one does feel out the gate different. It's not just another make someone guess the word, or hey, there's a few words out there, connect two of them or something.
I appreciate it. Like people, I have been calling like codename adventures type of thing, But I think more for me, it's closer to So Clover. I think one nice difference is So Clover. When you hand it out, it's like okay, it's there. So now you hear the group thought process, and you're like, they're going to get it wrong because their thought process. This one, you hear their thought process, and if you survive, the next time you can kind of write the word to kind of fit into what they're saying.
That does bring up another point that in these kind of games, I'm always a little iffy on that sort of thing.
Whether or not you should leave the room and not hear the discussion?
Right, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Because you'd be like, well, if they would have been horse there, and you're like, well, I guess that's the clue I'll give next time. But that's not. That feels like it goes against the spirit.
Right.
And I just tell people in this type of game, like, you should discuss it, what you think, and I, as the clue giver, can react to it. But the not communicating with the clue giver by saying, if they wanted me to guess this, they should have written the word horse. Like that. At that point, I'll be like, hey, we're not going to play that way. Right.
Yeah.
And multiple games have that issue.
But it's easy for this to come up in this game just by accident through discussion. Like, well, why would you put it here? A better word would have been this. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm not trying to give you that hint. Just
right.
One of my problems with this game, though, is we keep comparing it to the other games, Codenames and Mystic Paths and So Clover and stuff, is that you are creating your own secondary clues, which for some people is a positive.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to build the path. So when I put a word down, I'm not thinking of where they're going to put this word down. That's not the only thing I'm thinking of. I'm also thinking of what words can I build off of this and what other connections. So if I put this word here, then that word will be next to those words, and a good combo for that would be this. And that is the optimal way to play the game. And for me, it's a step too far. It just is. And I think I'm not alone in that regard. I know for sure when I play with my family, my kids hated that idea of trying to think of a clue. They like the idea of thinking of a clue. Oh, this clue goes here. But then building off that clue, I mean, you can easily get caught up in this game building a bunch of clues that are all synonyms. And suddenly you're like, oh, everything works everywhere, and you lose.
That's the thing.
Yes. So it's... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It almost requires a little bit more of the clue giver to be clever in a different way, where you're setting yourself up for future areas. And then also, okay, if they put these two together, well, then I know a word not to use because that'll go on the trap space. And then the other people put that word somewhere where you weren't expecting. You're like, oh, darn. So I like that flexibility. I like those little bit of issues that come up from play, because you as the clue giver have a space in mind, and then when the players don't put it where you think, you're like, oh, okay, time to rethink my strategy here. But I think that you're right, Tom. There are people who are not going to like the fact that your own clues are going to roll into your future clues, and that whole spatial missteps.
The spatial missteps for me, there's so many spots to put those around that hex or whatever they are. And it's like, and they would actually legitimately fit there. With So Clover, you can rationalize and say, well, this is what I meant here. But here, you've got like one or two, and that could be a difference between trap and nothing. And
I agree, and that's really tough when you do that and get into those spots. Then this leads me to my biggest problem with the game, and that is the maps. I feel like the maps were almost just randomly designed.
Right.
There's been some maps where I'm like, this map, they're all like easy, right? If you're playing the easy mode, and I'm like, this map doesn't seem easy. Like you put the exit 2 spaces away from the words, and then all the treasures around a whole bunch of traps over here, so you have to go a very specific way. But I don't get the 3 words in the cards. I don't understand why there's not just 1, 2, 3, and then you draw another card that gives you some random words that you put there, because the mix and the combos where they specifically generated, they don't feel like they were. Like Codenames is fun because you get a random grid of cards each time, and you're like, oh, wow, these 3 words kind of fit together. That's neat.
Yeah.
The 3 words don't fit together, which I think is deliberate, but they also seemingly feel like 3 very random words at the same time. So it's kind of a weird thing in that regard. And they're clumped together every time. So your first one, you're like, okay, well, there's 3 words. What's a good one that's these 2? What's a good one that's these 2? And I don't care about the last 2 because it's up against the side of the board. And then the maps themselves just seem to be randomly generated, which is good in one way because as the players, we have no idea where you're telling us to go.
Right.
Like we can't try to be like, well, logically, there shouldn't be water. But some maps have water that's like 1 or 2 spaces away from starting spot. That's worthless.
Because you refill your tiles way too early. You're like,
Yeah,
well,
it
that's
doesn't.
a
It's
bummer.
like it doesn't really matter, and that just kind of makes me think the game is just okay. That's where I can't get past. I've had some decent games of this, but I've had a lot of bad ones.
And also the fact that sometimes you'll have to wrap around the other side of the map to get those treasures or whatever when you could just win by getting out.
Yeah, I don't love that nebulous win condition. That bugs
is
me in games.
odd.
Right.
Give me a score at least. Like 1 treasure is good, 2 treasures is amazing, 3 treasures you're the best ever. Now there is that competitive version where 2 people are playing, but that gets messy and muddy. You haven't seen that version.
I've not seen that one.
I think for me, the biggest weakness of the game are the map cards. And I have to agree with you there because a lot of times your starting 3 words are on an edge of the map, rendering 2 of the starting words almost useless. And the thing is that it's not that way by complete happenstance. The entire map is on that same starting card. And so it's like by design, they knew that 2 of those words were going to be useless. And if you do use those 2 words that are against the side, all of the side spaces are just blank anyway. Right. So there's a lot. I feel like the map cards are not. Yeah, they're not formed in a way that makes
They feel
it always
procedurally
interesting.
generated.
Yeah, and they weren't then like touched up and fixed up to be made more interesting afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's what I would have done. I would probably procedurally generate them because hand doing 100 cards is a pain in the neck.
Right.
But then gone through them and said, how does this work? Overall, I wanted to like this game. I just can't recommend it because there are other games that give me the same feeling, specifically So Clover and Codenames, give me the same feeling in a better, easier package for me to bring to people. I think there's going to be people who like Landmarks. I think there's going to be people who enjoy this. But I'm not one of them. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10.
Wow, interesting. I've had some very fun games of this, like you've said. I learned that my brother knows all of the names of the cast of the characters from Bluey really well. I also learned that he eats muffins as a dessert because the starting words were pastry and the other word was nighttime, and he wrote muffin. And I was like, got it. It's a pastry, but it's far away from night. And his wife goes, actually, we eat a lot of muffins at night. I'm like, well, I'm going to trust you. And that turned out to be what he was thinking. It leads to those clever, fun moments. And then other times the maps are just not well made, and it leads to kind of either a whimper of a win or like just well, we lost, and that was kind of expected. So I'm coming in score-wise at a 6.5. And I'm shy of recommending it. I like it a lot, but I think that despite the fun it brings, it has some design weaknesses that hold it back from some of those other games that you've mentioned.
Actually, another game, and that we just talked about earlier, I would compare those a lot to Link City that came out this year also. And Link City has hit every time.
Yes.
Every time I play Link City, it is a blast. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in a party game.
I agree. Yeah, I don't want ones that have sometimes duds, sometimes fun. So 6.5, shy of recommending it.
I agree. I'm kind of splitting the fact that because I do enjoy the activity of this game as far as the game itself, scoring, all that. It's just, for me, it falls flat. But I find it fun to sit there and kind of guess where people are going. But I would play So Clover and Link City over this. I think those add to more fun moments. I'm coming at a 6. I would play this if it was down in front of me because it's a short game. It's a quick game. It'll hit the table for me sometimes if someone wants to play it, but I would not seek it out. And if people ask me to recommend a game, I'd recommend one of the other 3 over this.
Well, there you go, folks. That's Landmarks. Tell us what you think in the comments. I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Chris Yee.
And I'm Joey Evans.
See you next time on an island
with Muffins.
I was not even look up. Oh gosh, that was going to be really cool.
Doing the Riker.
That's what made him cool.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us for that video. If you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, make sure you check out what's happening where I'll cover an app on an iOS or a Switch device, and you can check it out along with me. Thanks very much. You've been watching The Dice Tower.